You're watching Ebru Africa TV. This is Ebru Africa Afternoon News on this 24th day of April 2014. I'm Sam Gakunyi. In our top story, 4 people were killed when a car bomb exploded outside a police station in Pangani, a neighborhood of the Kenyan capital Nairobi, yesterday night. Thus far, no one has been arrested in connection to this blast. Investigations are still ongoing.
Police officers had earlier stopped the saloon car after its occupants broke the law and were taking them for questioning when the bomb exploded. Kenyans are increasingly alarmed at the relative ease at which militants and radicalized youth are able to carry out deadly strikes in the heart of Kenya, East Africa's biggest economy. It was not immediately clear who was behind the attack. Pangani is located next to Nairobi's Eastleigh district, an area populated by Somalis and targeted in past bomb and grenade attacks. A second controlled detonation was carried out by a bomb disposal officer shortly after the initial blast. It is common for Kenyan police to demand a ride back to the police stations in vehicles they have stopped.
Moving on, South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has fired the head of the army. A decree read out on state television announced that General James Hothmey would be removed with immediate effect. General Paul Malong was named as the new general head of staff.
With no official reason given for the removal of Gen Mai, analysts say the military has suffered several setbacks in the north of the country in recent days. The new development came as the United Nations Security Council members said they are considering sanctions on South Sudan's warring parties. United Nations peacekeeping chief Hervé Ladsu had demanded serious consequences to force an end to the violence.
The first, from my part, is that we are not and cannot be in a business-as-usual format. I think this cycle of violence that started on the 15th of December last year has to stop. It must stop immediately. Yet, we see that neither party is ready to in any way cease the hostilities. The agreement on that, which was signed exactly to this day, 3 months ago, has never been implemented. They do not give indication that they sincerely want to participate in the peace talks. So
Ladsu said the international community cannot be in the business-as-usual format with regards to the South Sudan situation.
The United Nations is doing everything it can to protect the civilians that are fleeing the violence, the war. But let us never forget that the primary responsibility for protect civilians is with the government. We are there to support, but it is the government of South Sudan to make it so that its citizens are not killed.
Last week, rebels slaughtered hundreds of civilians when they seized the South Sudan oil hub of Bentiu. Joy Ogu, the United Nations ambassador and the current council president, said that most council members in the meeting had suggested using the principle of deterrence to send a message to the parties responsible.
Most of us suggested using the principle of deterrence to send a message unequivocally to the parties responsible for this impunity that it must not happen again. The responsibility of every nation state is to protect its citizens and maintain order within its territory. And we stress the inviolability of UN institutions resident in member state countries, that they can violate the sanctity of the UN institution and kill people inside those institutions. It's intolerable. It should not happen.
The United Nations mission to South Sudan, known as UNMISS, has approximately 8,500 military peacekeepers and police deployed in a country the size of France with a population of some 11 million.
To the Central African Republic now, and around 400 kilometers from the restrictive capital Bangui, Muslim and Christians live together in peace under the protection of Seleka Muslim forces, though some dreams of dividing the country has led some to design a new flag in case of secession.
It is a model of peace in an otherwise troubled country. Bambari, Central African Republic's second largest town, which is now under the protection of the Muslim Seleka force. They pride themselves here in defending both Christians and Muslims alike from any attack.
The anti-Balaka are the problem. From the beginning of the rebellion, they attack only the civilian population. They're not fighting the army, but the population. They killed civilians all the way to Bangui, despite the Seleka being kept in the barracks. And the Michael Jutodia's resignation, they have continued to massacre the population. Up to the present day, it's only the civilians they are killing. So they are the ones who want to be the part of the partition. We can't accept any case of the partition of this country. Never.
Muslims in this dusty town at the heart of the Central African Republic are tentatively embracing a radical solution to the threat of religious violence from militia's partition. Young people in Bambari are circulating a design for a new flag from cell phone to cell phone for what they say will be called the Republic of Northern Central Africa.
Maintenant, on vous parle, c'est depuis la République de la Centrafrique du Nord.
We want to talk about the Republic of Northern Central Africa. The partition itself has already been done. Now there only remains the Declaration of Independence. You saw even the colors of the new flag. And this new flag will be the only flag of this secular republic.
L'unique drapeau de cette république laïque.
Residents say Bambari is a place where Christians and Muslims live in harmony, and that stands in stark contrast to the capital Bangui, around 300 kilometers southwest and the west.
I ask the population of Bangui to take note of the example set by Bambari, where Christians and Muslims live side by side. We don't understand what's going on down there in Bangui. I don't know. But here in Bambari, we are all together.
The chances of achieving partition are, however, virtually zero, since the interim government has displaced the idea, as have French and UN peacekeepers.
Moving on, pro-Ukraine activists living in the east of the country, where pro-Kremlin separatists have taken over several administrative buildings, can face threats or, worse still, verbal abuse. The editor of a pro-Kiev newspaper recently had his leg broken by a masked gang and only managed to save his business from going up in flames.
Being a nationalist in the heart of eastern Ukraine's separatist areas can be a dangerous business. Igor was attacked in February by a masked gang, his leg broken. All for editing the only newspaper in the area that's opposed to the surge of pro-Russian separatist sentiment that's erupted in the region. A few days ago, there was an attempt to torch his offices.
We've had journalists attacked. There have been attempts to break our equipment. We work with young journalists who are often targeted by drunks or vagrants who take their anger out on them.
In the eastern city of Donetsk, 80 kilometers away, the regional administration building remains in the hands of pro-Moscow separatists. They see the interim government in Kiev as illegitimate. Tatiana helps organize pro-Ukrainian rallies in the city, in spite of the risks. But recent surveys show that a large majority of people in the Donbass region, while sympathetic to the idea of greater regional powers, do not want the breakup of Ukraine.
A sociological survey showed that 70% of the population of Donbass is in favor of a unified Ukraine, and only 20% in favor of becoming part of Russia. And of that 20%, some associate Russia with the USSR. They can't see the difference.
Tatiana's event manages to gather around 2,000 nationalists, though for their safety they're kept away from the centre of Donetsk and given police protection.
I am for a unified Ukraine. I don't like what's happening in Donetsk at the moment. Those people in front of the regional administrative building are not from here.
Donetsk's pro-Russian separatists plan to hold their own local referendum on autonomy on May the 11th. Meanwhile, the East's nationalists will continue to fly their flag, to make sure, after Crimea to the south, that no more land is lost.
On the borders of Europe, the inhabitants of Transnistria, a Russian-speaking breakaway region of Moldova, desire international recognition and worry about the knock-on effects of the conflict in neighboring Ukraine.
Spring has sprung in Transnistria, but a chill wind of uncertainty is blowing through this Russian-speaking region, where nostalgia for the Soviet Union is strong. After the breakup of the USSR, it broke away from Moldova, where the majority of people speak Romanian, in a conflict which left 800 people dead. Now the turmoil in Ukraine, with which it shares a long border, have stirred up painful memories.
Тревожишь иллюзии, брат против брата пошел. Вот это вот тревожит больше всего. Когда-то у нас такое было, но у нас немножко быстрее закончилось, а там они затягиваются.
After 20 years of so-called frozen conflict with Moldova, people in Transnistria worry they could be the next flashpoint. Around 1,500 Russian soldiers are stationed in the territory, which is home to just 500,000 people. Russian President Vladimir Putin has recently said it should be able to decide its own fate, but his country's support is more than just rhetorical. It subsidizes the enclave to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Officially, at least, Transnistria's leaders seek independence, though in the past they've expressed their desire to become part of Russia.
Only recognition of Transnistria will bring lasting stability. It will be of benefit to the people of Transnistria as well as Europe, which will have on its borders an area that is stable and predictable, with a peaceful and hard-working people.
Having spent 20 years in political limbo, many locals would like to see the region's status settled once and for all. Their Transnistrian passports do not currently allow for foreign travel, and a thawing of the dispute could pave the way for much-needed economic development.
I don't know what the way ahead should be, but what's sure is that we need certainty and recognition in one form or another.
In the meantime, in a region where the average salary is around €200 a month, tens of thousands of people have already left to seek greater economic opportunity elsewhere. And with more pensioners than workers, Transnistria's future, economic as well as political, is shrouded in uncertainty.
Moving on, most well known for its detention facility, Guantanamo Bay in Cuba is a fully functioning US military base, complete with all the amenities that entails for the families who live there. We look at what it's like to live in the shadow of one of the world's most notorious prisons.
The only McDonald's in Cuba is one of the many things that makes Guantanamo Bay a surreal home from home for the US troops stationed here. Ronald McDonald has stood just a couple of miles from one of the world's last bastions of communism since 1986. It's the army-run detention facility that has brought Guantanamo global notoriety, housing those captured in the US war on terror since 2002. But the adjoining naval base has been here for much longer, rented from Cuba since 1903 for $4,000 a month, although the Cubans claim they never cash the check. The base supports US ships in the Caribbean and monitors illegal immigration. Servicemen and some of their families have all the usual facilities of an American base. There's a church, an outdoor cinema, even an Irish pub and a gift shop which sells Gitmo t-shirts. Many of those based here have little contact with the detention camps.
To tell you the truth, I don't really think about it all that much. I focus on my job that's here at hand, and I don't have security credentials to go, so that's kind of where we fall on that. We'll go down our little Hall of Fame here.
Stephen is an engineer on Radio Gitmo, which broadcasts music and news for those on base. The workers here are among the few soldiers whose faces we're allowed to show. As staff at the radio station, their job puts them more in the public eye than most servicemen here.
Hey, want to talk a little bit about the Day at the Bay that's going down at Ferry Landing Beach on Saturday, April 26th?
Photos on the base's website give some idea of the sports and social events that news cameras aren't allowed to film. In the shadow of one of the world's most notorious prisons, the atmosphere is family-friendly.
It's kind of like microcosm of everything good in America as far as, you know, wholesome family environments and stuff like that. It's kind of, you know, you really don't worry about crime very much. It's a smaller community. Everybody knows everybody else's kid. You know, everybody knows everybody else, period.
Despite this small-town American feel, the elephant in the room is never far away. Behind these fences are some of the 154 detainees who've been held here without charge or trial for over 12 years.
And finally, be warned. A group of space explorers say the chance of a city-obliterating asteroid striking Earth is higher than scientists previously believed. With 26 asteroids detected by scientists in the last 13 years, scientists are calling for measures to prevent a catastrophe.
The chances of an asteroid hitting Earth and destroying a major city? Higher than you might think.
And we asked the UN to consider 5 new measures to protect Earth from asteroid strikes.
Scientists who monitor nuclear weapons detonations say they've detected 26 asteroids between 2000 and 2013. One explosion over Russia last year left more than 1,000 people injured by flying glass and debris. Steps can be taken to prevent even more serious injuries, say scientists. Number 1, using a $250 million infrared space telescope to detect them.
To put this IR telescope into space and find the 1 million dangerous asteroids out there that are big enough to wipe out a city on our planet. And he'll be talking about the details of that threat. But that telescope is an essential part of this this current warning network that we need to expand.
Former astronaut Ed Liu heads the B612 Foundation, the group that is raising money for the telescope, as well as awareness about the threat.
Building a map of the entire solar system to protect planet Earth costs about as much as building a freeway overpass. There are people sometimes think, oh, well, how can you do this if we can't solve other global problems like poverty or environmental problems or education? I don't know how to solve those problems. I would love to solve those problems, but they're quite a lot larger in scale. This is the only global-scale natural disaster that I personally know how to prevent, so that's what I'm going to do.
While NASA already has a program that tracks asteroids larger than 1/6 of a mile, Liu says smaller ones have the potential to wipe out an entire city.
And that's all we had for you on today's edition of Ebru Africa Afternoon News. See you at 9 for more news making headlines across the globe. I'm Sam Gakunyi.